I can't wait to talk about James Bond because he's so cool and sexy, and he just reminds me of Martyn, but 10 years older.
What, Martyn's 10 years
Which one is
older?
10 years older?
Yeah.
Daniel Craig looks like a fucking ballsack.
I wish my ball sack looked that good.
It's like if your ballsack had a rib
Yeah.
cage. That's what it looks like.
You'd have some good-looking balls, especially if they come out of the water in those Speedos.
Yeah, but you can be as ripped as you want, but you can't get rid of that just Irish, pasty, a bit freckly skin. That's the same I've got. You can't get rid of that in the gym, can you? And he never got rid of it.
It's what South Park refers to as a
it's
day
a
walker.
superior Bond.
Oh, don't start that shit.
I've only seen 2 James Bond movies. I've seen Casino Royale, and I've seen
The best one.
The Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah,
You
Casino
haven't
Royale.
seen any
actually...
Pierce Brosnan ones?
I've tried to watch World Is Not Enough, and
What?
is that the one with the speedboat?
Oh, I
chase
love
at
the
start?
stealth speedboat. That's my favourite Bond film.
Is that the Eden Project one?
That's the one when they're wailing on
I
his
didn't get that
BMW
far. I
and
turned
they
it
get
off after about
electrocuted.
20 minutes. It was rubbish. The name's Pump, Golden E Pump, also known as Dan Whitell, and this is Season 4, Episode 4 of the Cacophony Sessions podcast. I've been expecting you. Today we're ranking the themes from all 25 James Bond movies, so grab a dry martini as we separate the rump shakers from the rump stirrers. For your ears only, which songs leave us thinking nobody does it better, and which ones leave us applying for a license to kill? We'll be scoring them all out of 10 to find out. We don't have all the time in the world, so let's meet the rest of tonight's cast. Joining me for this one, Tom.
I'm just a normal functioning member of the human race, and there's no way anyone can prove otherwise.
Actually, it's probably the best one you've done. Actually sums you up better as well.
I know, I thought that was quite good, all right? I saw that and I was like, yep, that'll do.
Alex?
Right, I'm here. Where were your other 2 wishes?
You've used that one before.
I thought I had actually, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you've
fuck,
definitely
it's a
done that
classic.
one before.
I'm going to call back. It's a good thing. It's cool. On purpose.
Dan B?
Pub quiz didn't go well. The quizmaster asked me, name a Bond villain. He just wouldn't take no for an answer.
Oh,
I enjoyed that. That
Thank
was
you.
really good.
Yeah,
I
that's a
felt it all in my
Bond-related
spine.
joke.
That was so good.
You've got to theme these things.
Ooh.
And returning, it is Martyn.
Hi, I'm Martyn, and my favourite band is the Beastie Boys because I'm licensed to ill. See what I did there? Bond licensed to kill ill. Fuck off.
Wasn't that the
Fuck off.
point in their joke in the first place?
Maybe,
That was
I don't
more
know.
cringe than bands, but I wasn't sure it was on purpose.
Put work into that one, man.
Maybe you should go back to the approach of not putting any effort in.
Oh, we should send him away for another podcast or 2. He isn't right yet.
It sounds like we need a bit of a warm-up. So, as usual, we're going to kick things off with a game that takes a song off the top of someone's head and asks, does it slap?
Don't trade a podcast where the jingles are crap. So let's take a good song and ask, does it slap?
Who's up?
Oh, I'll go then,
Go on.
because no one else is. I've been listening to a lot of Goldfrapp lately because she's got a new solo album coming out, and Ride a White Horse by Goldfrapp is a undeniable banger.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Which one's that one? How's that one go?
It's their disco beat with a sexy woman singing on it. That's all you need to know.
Is that the one that goes, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
in.
no, I think it was Silver Machine, not no, something Machine.
Strip
Yeah,
Machine.
that's Straight Machine.
That's the only song by Goldfrapp I know.
That could have been a. That could have been.
That's
one,
a
but
that's
no,
also
no.
a banger.
No,
Ooh la la
I
as well.
hate that song.
Aw.
Yeah.
If you don't like that, you're probably not going to like
Oh.
Ride a White Horse. It doesn't sound like it's an undeniable banger by our and Dan standards.
All right, I'll choose another one. Smoko by the Chats. That's going in.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
easy.
100%.
Copy paste
Yeah.
both albums done.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm on Smoko. Leave me alone.
I fucking
so
love
good.
that song so much. Yeah.
It's great.
I love that band. They're a great band.
Yeah, fantastic band.
I'm enjoying Ride a White Horse, if that helps.
I've just listened to it and I personally think it's a bit bad. But I don't like Goldfrapp, so I'm kind of doing what Tom did with Eye of the Tiger. If you don't like it, you just don't like it. It's just-
Yeah.
So it's a no on that one then.
But I think Smoko by the Chats did make it in.
Oh, yeah.
That should
Yeah.
definitely.
That should
Well, there we
probably have
go.
been in there already.
Oh, by the way, I watched a Run-DMC documentary last night. It's on YouTube. I feel like we should put a Run-DMC song on the undeniable banger list. I can't remember the song I like. What it's called now, so actually ruining me. It's like that.
It's like that.
That's not them.
And that's the way it is.
Actually, no, it is.
I prefer Hard Times off the first album. Is great.
Hard Times is good. It's tricky.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good one. Tricky.
I think
Yeah,
everybody likes It's Tricky.
I like that song.
Tougher Than Leather, the track off of Tougher Than Leather.
I think
Fucking
Tricky is the
awesome.
one that most people would have heard.
What about Walk This Way with Aerosmith?
There you go.
I
I love that song, but it's an Aerosmith song, isn't it?
It is an Aerosmith song. They brought it back into the public consciousness.
There's two
Actually,
versions.
no, we
aren't
should put that because that
Yeah.
essentially, I'm not sure if people are happy with it or not. Nowadays, it seems everyone seems to be happy with it, but I kind of created new metal. So
there? It's the
Well,
first rap rock
yeah.
song.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's rap metal song, really.
Yeah, I think we'll have Walk This Way.
Yeah,
It's
I think
Tricky as well.
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah,
tend to do
it's
too many
tricky. I'll
about it
go
so
for
much,
that.
But It's Tricky's pretty weak. I mean, It's Like That's my favorite, but
Weirdly, I go, it's tricky or it's like that over Walk
I think
This
it's
Way.
like that. Yeah.
We discussed this.
Time
one
is a
before.
flat circle or something.
I did see Todd in the Shadows did a video the other day, actually.
that's what I watched. Yeah, that's exactly what I watched. Yeah.
His review of their train record, which is Crown Royal, which came out in 2001.
I saw that.
And that was
too.
the end of their career. Daryl didn't do anything on that album.
It was really sad to see the demise of DMC. He was powerful, but it was due to his ill health.
It was also the fact that he didn't want to record crossover stuff. Like Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind was the big
I know,
comeback
right?
single. Not great.
know.
I like
Third Eye
Third Eye
Blind seems
Blind.
like one of those bands that Martyn would like.
Fuck off. No, I would not like them.
I
Why
don't
would
know.
I
yeah,
like
no,
them?
No, I'm not saying like we'd think you'd like bands that you weirdly love, and we would have to then just tell you off for the next 6 months.
Semi-Charred Life is an undeniable banger. I'm just putting it out there.
No
One or two,
Third Eye
which I
Blind
didn't.
for me.
Anyway, let's find out briefly what everyone's been up to since we last recorded. Martyn, let's start with you.
We released our EP, Foreign Voices. Yeah, we're a indie rock band from the Southwest. Check us out. We're on Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Music. We're on all across the platforms. Check us out, yeah.
He's so much better than this than I was.
Does this count as a paid ad?
That sounded so weird coming from someone on the podcast that's not me. I'm half expecting you to say like and subscribe as well.
Yeah,
I'll do that as
so,
well.
man.
And
So,
comment
yeah,
about
that-
cardigans.
That's what's been going on with me. I had a bit of a battle with myself thinking, am I being a narcissist by listening to it constantly? And I'm like, no, I'm fucking proud of it. It's fucking amazing. And I don't just listen to my guitar parts, which are excellent, but I listen to the whole thing.
I imagine you've got your EQ set up so that you take all the bass out, all the drums, and it's just your guitar.
Yeah, but you're in the
Isolated.
starting phase. Even if it's like a rehearsal video, just on your like not video, but on your phone, and you go, "Oh, this sounds
Yeah.
wicked." Everyone in the band over listens to it to the point they think the song's
Yeah.
shit. But you haven't got to the point where you think your stuff's shit yet, but you will get there.
No, we won't.
No,
We
we
won't. I'll tell you why, because our stuff is not shit. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
It
I
is very
guarantee you, at some point after your 100th listen, you'll think that verse goes on a bit long, and that'll be it. That'll be all you think
Mate,
about.
I'm already there. I listen to it. I hear a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I could have done that different. Oh, I missed the note.
On one of my last band's EPs, one of my drumsticks hit the rim slightly on a fill, and that's all I can hear is the fucking rim shot on that mid fill, and it
Yeah,
just oh,
right.
How
out,
are you not
doesn't
still
it?
in prison?
oh.
Fortunately, we're back in the studio again the first week in August. We'll have some new stuff to listen to then. We won't get too bored with this one.
We finally found our feet with the writing process. I won't go into it, but it just works for us. And it's very challenging as well, especially for me, because it's usually Tom and Ian. They do the groundwork, and then I have to come in and fit stuff over it. And then I've even Ian standing over my shoulder going, oh, maybe you should try that different, mate.
He doesn't
Okay.
sound like that. He's from Blackpool, by the way.
You know, the weird thing is that Radiohead have always been one of my favorite bands of all time when I got into them. And I found myself not intentionally being like a mix between Ed O'Brien and Johnny Greenwood whenever I pick up the guitar now, and which is really nice because I've just felt recently my playing has just transcended what I ever thought I could ever do. I'm looking forward to going back in the studio again and making some new music.
Cool. Al.
Annoyingly, I've listened to more music this month than I ever have, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember one album I've really listened to because this happens to me. One thing I do remember listening to is the new Drain album. You remember it was my favorite album of my last year, but the year before.
Yeah, and you and I are the only ones who liked it.
Oh god, yeah, but they got a new album out. They've had it recorded since like January, but because they've signed to Epitaph, they're doing it properly, so they're waiting to a good release window or something. But they finally released it, and I didn't even listen to the full album. I've only got it was what I was doing before this, after the research we were doing. Listening to porn themes.
It is research. Definitely.
It is research, yeah. But yes, I'm only about 6 songs deep into it, but so far it sounded pretty wicked, and it'll probably be in my album of the year list. Because I also got into a band called The Good in a Band and Fugly. They're a Swedish punk band. I've listened to their newest album, and it is wicked. I basically went on a YouTube journey and then basically lined up all the bands, and like for Vakin, all of them, they gave you like a 30-second slice of each band. And it was one band that really stuck out to me because it was pop punk with a bit of screaminess into it. It was really good. And I listened to the album recently. Sort of thing I should have looked up before. But yes, check out the band. They're very good.
Did you have a chance to listen to the new Enter Shikari album yet?
No, I haven't, because Enter Shikari, what I like about Enter Shikari was that they were a bit emo and screamo with a lot of electronics. And they've gone into kind of weird...
They've got good, basically.
Yeah, they've got... fair enough. I'll give them, they have got good, and they've got to the point where people like them now. I don't like their newer stuff. So I do listen. I've seen them live like 4 times.
I thought you might say that.
Because they play Plymouth a lot, so I've just seen them a lot.
I've never liked them, but I really like the new album. I thought it was quite good.
I like a couple of tracks on it, but the couple of tracks I like are the ones that sound like their older stuff. Whereas they're probably the 2 tracks that Dan's like, nah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't got my notes on that to hand, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it says.
I think it's like track 2 and 3 are the 2 that I was like, yeah, I'm into this, and they're probably like dance.
I remember liking the first track and then going, oh no, I think they're falling into the same traps, and then I was like, oh no, okay, they've recovered.
So sorry, the band was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Research Destroy, fucking awesome album. Really recommend giving it a go. Could be your introductory kind of thought there, but I also listened to something with Vil Valo. Is it Vil Valo of him?
Vil Valo.
Yeah.
Vil Valo, that's it. Yeah, I listened to his solo album actually. I've been listening to it in the car on the way to work and that. And that's quite good as well. I've never been a massive him fan, but I've never disliked them either. But when I saw he had a solo album, I thought I'd give him a go because he hasn't really recorded anything for like 10 years or whatever. And yeah, it's quite good. If you like chilled out to style rock music, and which is quite inoffensive, it's quite good. I quite enjoyed it. I thought I was going to see the Hoosiers at a festival recently. I ended up not doing it because it was pissing it down when we went home. So I listened to their music and I actually quite enjoyed their unpopular albums. And band news for me actually. We found a singer. Oh, cool. We now have a final lineup. We've got about 5 songs musically written. We need lyrics, so we're going to do it this weekend. Look forward to it. So we'll see how it goes.
Dan.
I've not been doing a lot, as always, because, that's my life. But I am wearing my Argyle jumper, which is because today the season finished. And
it took you this long to mention them.
Come on. We're just such a good team that I don't need to bring it up all the time. It
speaks for itself.
We won the league again for the first time in 19 years. 101 points, first team in history to ever win more than 100 points twice. That could be true, it could not be.
Our fact checker doesn't check football, so...
Oh, good. I can say anything I want.
Yeah,
they're the greatest team in the world. They were out drinking on the Barbican with all the fans, and apparently the police shut it down at 10 o'clock because the police are annoying. Got to take my son to the game. Fuck the police, exactly. But the Janna song should go on there. If anybody hasn't heard the Janna song, wow, what a song that is.
I don't think I can do that and
it's
not
by the Barnett Brothers. I think it needs to go on the description below. It's just beautiful. It's about the loveliest city in the world, Plymouth. And the fine folk that live here. Yeah. I've also really cleverly, sadly, whatever you want to call it, terribly getting old. I've started making sourdough. Yeah, I am that person now. I've got a starter. I've named it. I've been feeding it. I've made at least 3 loaves of bread. You've got to the bread
making phase of your life.
It's such good bread.
Oh, that's so horrific.
Tasty.
I feel sad for you.
Yeah, I feel good. The gluten is no good for you, Dan, but it's delicious. I apologize in advance.
Well, I don't really laugh so much. Dan and this stupid gluten intolerant body. What are you, a pussy? Fucking hell.
Hey, I prefer the term gluten freak, okay?
Okay. Yes.
It's a disability, actually. Sometimes I have a passy, I'll shit myself for 3 days.
Call that a treat.
Tom.
Okay, move on quickly.
I haven't been listening to much new release stuff because obviously our band's EP came out on Friday and we did an interview on Jana Radio Friday evening. The show's called Where Are We Going? It wasn't recorded, but I think we might be going back on at some point. Jana Radio, owned by Omnium Radio, which is a community interest project in Plymouth. That's definitely worth checking out. But I also bought possibly the most Dan Whitell bass guitar that anyone has ever seen.
That is hideous. Why do you own that?
I quite like it.
I like it.
Even
So
diagonal frets.
Yeah, diagonal frets. It's a Strandberg.
Weird.
It's a Strandberg Bowden original. It's limited 10th anniversary, one of only 5 made in this particular finish. The reason I wanted it is because the fan frets give you perfect intonation, which is really useful when you're playing low end. And also, if I turn it over, the neck has a really weird you won't see it because it's too dark, but the neck has a really weird profile that encourages better thumb position, which is going to be better for technical playing. Also, it weighs nothing, and because it has no headstock, it fits in the boot of a car, which, if you were a bass player, you will realise that is one of life's constant problems, is that your bloody bass guitar will not fit in the boot of a car. You have to put the back seats down or across the back seat. Not anymore.
Pickups not in line. That upsets me.
They're in line with the bridge.
I don't like your bass, Tom. Sorry.
I knew you wouldn't, but I knew Dan would love it. I bet Dan's like, that's a cool bass guitar.
It is a cool bass guitar.
Yeah.
It's way more in line with the Bootsy Collins space bass. That kind of look to an instrument, which I'm down with. I do like silly instruments as well, like Prince's cymbal guitar, and just outrageous personal icons being the instruments themselves. As much as I don't like Brian May, the guitar that he's made himself and added to over years is cool. Yeah, it's a cool bass.
The other thing, actually, is that I decided to sell my record collection, which I've been building up over a 30-year period, because I just came to this conclusion that I was sat looking it on a shelf, and you go through and you realise that you've got stuff that people would probably kill to listen to. So, for example, a friend of mine's listing it all for me on eBay because I am technologically incompetent. For example, I have the original 1989 Light into Dark Chicago compilation LP on vinyl in mint condition. That's the first time Smashing Pumpkins were ever released on record. I have their very first 7-inch single. I have Church's very first 10-inch single. And all of it is going to be being listed on eBay. So, yeah, go and check that out. And we'll put the link in the description below. But yes, please help me buy a van so my band can go to recording studios and gigs, please. Thank you. My plan was I want to buy a van for gigging, but I work for theatre companies playing piano. But because I'm self-employed in another job and I have income protection and things like that, I can't take any money from that. So I support some other charities. So because I can't get paid for playing the piano for theatre companies because it would invalidate my income protection for my other job, all the money I receive from that goes to charity. So once I've sold my record collection, I will buy a van. I'll probably buy a bass 6 and anything that's left, because an Eastwood TB64, because everyone needs one. Peter Hook had one. Everyone needs one. Once I've done that, anything that's left over that I don't need will probably go to CRY, which is a charity called Cardiovascular Risk in the Young, because all my income from playing piano goes to that. And they're a charity that go into schools to do ECGs to look for like undiagnosed heart problems so they can be caught early, which is a really good thing to do. Anything left over will probably go to them, if I'm honest, because they're a good charity that are worth supporting. Please give me money to buy a van. Once I've bought a van, give me money to give to charity.
Tom, you're going to be a man with a van. Hang on a second. Dan, if we buy Ven, does that make us Den with Ven? Maybe not. By the sounds of it, we'll have lots of links below for various causes, one of which is the Patreon. You can give £5 a month and you get full episodes of this in their video glory. The audio from every episode is still going to be uploaded as usual on all podcast platforms, and you can still find the opening segments of each one on the YouTube channel, Cacophony Sessions TV. We've had 13,000 people watch the Beatles episode recently, so thanks for everybody who has supported us on YouTube. Subscribe, comment, share it around, and give us a review on a channel which allows you to do so. For instance, Apple Music, give us a review on that. A couple of things from me in terms of news. We are going to do a cat news again. We'll be rolling that out every 6 weeks or so to give you a more in-depth lowdown on new releases. I absolutely love Jessie Ware's new album, That Feels Good.
Yes.
I think by far and away, I can't see anything being released that's going to come even close to that. I've scored it like a 9.6. It's an incredible record.
Good.
It's a beauty. It's a beauty. I loved it. Did I slate Jessie Ware? Tom said I hated on Jessie Ware in one of our previous episodes.
To be fair, you hate on most new music in every episode.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
you
do.
have a I can't be bothered to do research mode, and then you just hate it all.
Of course I do.
Jessie Ware was nominated on Album of the Year 2 years ago. 3 years
2020
ago?
it was, yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
So, yeah, two and a half years ago. And I think most people hated on it. Did it even make the top 10? I think
made
it's
the top-
great.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was number 10.
I think it scraped in at 10 because everyone slated it and Dan scored it really high. Martyn was round at mine the other night for writing, and you posted about Jessie Ware, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really excited. I really like Jessie Ware." And I was like, "Do you? Because you didn't come out like you did 2 years ago." You weren't very
No, I
tight
know.
about the album, Martyn.
I was down on it, but man, like the new album's amazing. It's got
Yeah.
that whole modern disco,
It's a
female
cinematic
vocals
disco
thing.
album,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
fucking
phenomenal.
beautiful. I like it. I think it's about when you listen to something. Sometimes something hits, and sometimes it misses. And I think at the time it missed, but now I'm in a better place. Fits better.
Couple of people to mention that have died in the music industry recently. Harry Belafonte, who is a calypso legend. Everybody knows Jump in the Line from Beetlejuice, and Deo, the Banana Boat song. Some absolute classics. And also Gordon Lightfoot as well, Canadian singer-songwriter, who's a very influential folk musician as well. We're also doing an interview with the Scribes, who are playing Cosmic Kitchen in Plymouth on the 26th of May. I'll be backstage with them doing an interview about their appearance at Glastonbury as well, so there's that to look forward to.
By the way, I'm sure the venue's very good, but I've been there to eat. Cosmic Kitchen, you should never charge £12 for a fucking wrap. Continue, Dan. Go on, continue. It's very important. People need to know.
Yep, they do. And what is it you need to know, I hear you ask? It's all our social details. Follow us on Facebook at the Cacophony Sessions on Facebook. We're at CAC Sessions Pod on Twitter. You can follow us on all the podcast platforms, YouTube, Patreon, you name it, we're on it. Make sure that you're supporting us going forwards, because then we can keep producing content like this. Speaking of which, it's time to rank I would say the top 25 Bond themes, but there are only 25 Bond themes. So it's all the Bond themes chronologically discussed and then ranked just for you.
Nobody does it better than
Oh
the
my God.
Cacophony Sessions.
Well, maybe. Tonight we're going to go through all 25 James Bond movies, starting with 1962's Dr. No through to the most recent movie being No Time to Die. To give you a little bit of context before we start going through the list, I can't say that I'm a James Bond fan at all. This is purely about the songs themselves. I don't have any particular memories of any of the films. I've seen Casino Royale, which I think is an excellent film, and I've seen The Man with the Golden Gun, which I don't think is an excellent film. And that's it. Is anybody else a particular aficionado when it comes to James Bond that we can count on as the expert when it comes to the movies or anything?
I saw them all up to Skyfall.
I have seen every single one, but other than Casino Royale, which I've seen 50 times, I think I've only seen the others about
Can we just be clear which Casino
Daniel
Royale?
Craig one.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Because when Dan goes, I've only seen Casino Royale, my instant assumption with it being Dan is that it's not the Daniel Craig one.
The original Casino Royale, it was based on the book, but it wasn't in
Yeah, it's not
it
in
with the
it's
series.
not
So it,
canon.
I
Yeah, it's
personally
not in the
count it,
official
but-
canon of James Bond. It's more
Yeah.
a parody.
Yeah,
Got
so-
this non-Marvel universe.
So you guys got me beat because, like, I think everyone's favorite Bond is the one they grew up with. So a lot of people were like Sean Connery, or they thought Roger Moore.
Timothy Dalton for
Timothy
me.
Dalton, but
Love
for
Timothy
me, it
Dalton.
was Pierce Brosnan. I started with GoldenEye and just loved them all. So, well, except for that last one he did, that was shit.
As someone that was born in 1974, my whole childhood was basically Christmas time Bond movies, always on. And yeah, they were fun and they were okay, but because I was more into sci-fi and I was more into Star Trek and stuff, it was always something that would be on, I'd watch it and I'd watch the cool stunts and stuff and then completely forget about absolutely no meaning, no substance whatsoever for me. I'm not a Bond fan, although my favourite James Bond is Roger Moore, which is problematic because he's the most problematic Bond, if any of them. Actually, probably it's not. It's Sean Connery, isn't it? Sean Connery is the wife beater, isn't he? Like the Beatles episode, I always go for the problematic people.
You just go for the domestic abuse angle every time.
What was the quote about John Lennon last time?
Do you know why I love the Beatles? John Lennon was not a nice person. In fact, he was a domestic abuser. I think that's the exact quote. So, let's see if we can try and get through these 25 songs without any condemnations of domestic abuse. We'll see. In a departure from our usual way of doing this, I don't actually know what people have scored this. We're not doing it in the order in which they've been ranked. I'm going to go through it in chronological order, and I'll find out everybody's shit opinions at the same time as you, the audience. We'll start with the first one, which is the obvious place to start. In 1962, this is actually a little bit different from the rest of them. It's not a vocal theme. The original Dr. No movie, the theme tune is the James Bond theme, which is the famous piece of music by John Barry. It was actually written by Monty Norman and arranged by John Barry and his orchestra. Norman has actually successfully litigated a couple of times, the Sunday Times in 2001 being one of the cases when newspapers have implied that it's actually written by John Barry. So let's make that clear. It was written by Monty Norman and arranged by John Barry. It's the James Bond thing. Everybody knows this, right? I scored it a 9. I can't score it a 10, but it's an iconic piece of music.
I have two strong opinions on this.
Oh, go on.
Firstly, it's a 10. Secondly, It probably shouldn't be on the list because it's different to all the others. And it's the theme for the entire series rather than just for this film. It's just the iconic Bond music, and I don't think it would be
it sets
fair
the benchmark for what we're essentially going to be judging it against, because we can all agree that the Bond theme is fantastic, and even when you listen to this version, it's like, yeah, that is the James Bond theme. That is good. Everyone can recognize it. No one can dislike it. 10.
I gave it a 7. And the reason is that's actually one of my highest scores I gave, to be fair. And that's because I needed to set it. There are a lot of things on this list I like more than it, and there are a lot of things I like less than it. So I was like, 7 is a good score. It's a good piece of music. But it's very much of its time. You think that this song, with what John Barry's done with the brass orchestration, is very much in the vein of what people like Henry Mancini was doing with the Pink Panther. There are several James Bond themes, actually most of them, in the early days that are encapsulating what's going on in music at the time. That sort of big band sound is, Henry Mancini's the perfect example. Was the big thing. The Pink Panther was recorded in 1963, and this probably influenced it. What's interesting with this particular piece is that the reason why Monty Norman is credited as the writer of the piece is actually from the guitar line, because he wrote the guitar line for a musical before, based on a book about an Indian family living in Trinidad. So he wrote the original score for the film Dr. No based on Caribbean rhythms, and that's why that guitar line really stands out, is because it's built around a sort of a Caribbean meets South Asian rhythm, which is why it sticks in our heads, because it wasn't really anything else at the same time. The brass all comes from John Barry, really, and that brass carries on for a long time in the films. And actually, John Barry, who did 11 of the James Bond films, gradually, if you listen to how the theme evolves throughout the series, the guitar gets less prominent and the brass start taking over the themes, that the dum 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 starts being played on the brass later on and less on the guitar. Just out of interest. I was going to say, yes, fuck you, Graham. I know this stuff already. I don't need to do research or look at my notes and learn what a cardigan is.
Okay, should we acknowledge this? Because we are probably referencing it. Okay, because we're getting, not me, because I wasn't on the one that was actually got views. The YouTube video got over 13,000 views as of recording this. And we've had 2 comments by the same person. Is it Graham? Is it described Tom as wearing a bad cardigan and probably listening to Blur?
I don't know if he was describing me. Firstly, I wasn't wearing a cardigan. Secondly, I don't like Blur.
He also
That
couldn't
was-
have been describing me because I was wearing a cardigan, but it certainly wasn't a bad
We are
cardigan.
kind of new to online criticism, and Fry has maybe been a bit butthurt by it. So please keep commenting, Graham.
Yeah, keep
because
commenting.
you
Especially
will-
about our cardigans.
You will get reported on.
I don't own a cardigan. This is a jumper.
I have
Sweater, if you like.
noticed that Fry isn't wearing his not cardigan today, so maybe it worked. I mean, we're getting bare now because of Graham.
It's warm enough. I don't need to wear a jumper anymore. I don't own a cardigan, so I don't know what one is. A cardigan is a jumper that opens at the front. I don't own a single one.
I think it's ironic that the fact that I both own and proudly wear a cardigan. I don't like the Beatles at all. And I also am a massive Blur fan, which is that whole comment thing was quite hilarious to me. But God bless him. And I absolutely welcome people commenting on our stuff. And Graham, whoever you are, God bless you, man. I already like the guy. He's a dude. But no, as for the theme tune, yeah, I like big band music. I like how it's arranged, and it's very complex, extremely complex music. And I give it a 10, not because I like it, but because I appreciate how it was made, how it was put together. And also that guitar part is almost like surf guitar, the guitar
surf rock.
thing. Yeah, and if you're a guitar player and you're learning, it's one of the first things you learn on the one string thing. I never did myself, but it's something that you do. So yeah, I'll give it a 10, and only because I don't like it, I'll never listen to it. But when it comes on, you know what it is, you know what it's about, and I appreciate more than anything the whole artistry that went into the whole big band arrangement thing. Because there's fewer things more difficult to arrange than big band. There's a lot of noise going on. How do you make so many massive instruments sound totally in tune, totally in time, totally fucking the whole dynamics? Just great.
Scoring for orchestra is a skill in and of itself, but it is something that is most of the great composers and conductors taught. The guitar line is flick, and he's playing some sort of weird 1939 electro.
Yeah, it's this surf rock, man. He's probably playing a ES335 that probably costs more than your house. He's doing his thing, and it is perfect session musicianship. But for me, it's a theme tune. There is soul to it, but I wouldn't listen to it as a standalone piece.
Right now, we're essentially trying to score. It's almost like it's trying to score a national anthem.
Good
It's
point.
just, okay, yeah, it's good, because that's how you represent this. And
And you hear it's James Bond, and it is a perfect piece of music in a lot of ways. And if it was something that wasn't associated with a film franchise, you'd listen to it and go, my God, that is good.
it's instantly recognizable. And I don't care who the fuck you are. No one doesn't just like and
also it fits the theme of the franchise as well. The spy who's a little bit damaged and he's going out and doing his thing and killing lots of people and stuff. It fits the whole idea of what James Bond was so perfectly. I think it's one of the most perfect theme tunes you could possibly ever create.
I would agree with that, actually.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's parts of it you listen to and you're like, oh, you can hear where they've used this to make similar themes. One that springs to mind is Police Squad. You can tell that there's certain almost like leitmotifs that are taken from this.
When you listen to the tune, it's almost like you can hear the narrative of the film. It starts off all mysterious, and then it goes all dramatic, and then it goes into the bit where there's some false peril, and then at the end you get the bit where the older man seduces the vulnerable young woman and he grooms her and stuff. You get all that stuff in there as well, and it just fits the narrative of a film.
I like it a little bit less now that you've said that.
Well, it's true. That's what happened.
My 7's looking a lot better now.
It's great. I still don't know if we should count it because it's the theme for all of the films.
We have to count it.
If that's number one,
I
it
know.
doesn't matter, because fair enough. That's the benchmark is the Bond theme. How close do we get to the Bond theme?
Okay, I'd be fine with it. It's amazing. It's just different. In the film, if you've seen Doctor No, it's quite good. There's Underneath the Mango Tree playing constantly throughout it, which is another track from the thing. And that is like your classic calypso kind of song. It's not very good. But I almost feel like if you watch the film, that's more the specific Doctor No theme, whereas this is just, it's James Bond music. I've given it a 10. It's amazing.
No, there's such thing as James Bond.
I sort of have, yeah, I know, but I just feel like it almost wins by default, and then we should discuss the others. I don't know.
See what comes out of the
Okay.
scores. Next up was the film From Russia with Love. The theme to that is Matt Monro's From Russia with Love from 1963. I personally have this down as Tesco value Andy Williams sings potentially the most boring Bond theme that there is. I'm not a fan of this one.
I gave it a 7 because I just felt like it was really well sung and it was really well made and it was really well put together. And it followed the theme of the James Bond thing of that whole grandiose casino of that era, wearing sharp suits, doing the whole Ocean's 11 thing. And I like the guy's voice. And yeah, it was the pound shop Frank Sinatra. But I scored it high because I really enjoyed listening to it.
Let's be clear, Frank Sinatra's My Way comes out in 69, right? So this is early era. I'll be up front right now. I gave this a 5. Matt Monro is known as the man with the golden voice. That was what he was called at the time. His voice is impeccable.
Yeah. He just sounds like Andy Williams to me.
That's not a bad thing.
No, it's not, but he's just not quite as good.
See, I think he's better, but he's not got the songs that Andy Williams has got. Every song that he's been given, he's done really well. And this song reflects the fact that sort of Brat Pack crooner thing was really big at the time. However, my problem with this song is whenever you had like a 60s or 70s sitcom that had something set in a Greek taverna, that's what the backing track for this sounds like. And you read the stories about how John Barry went to Turkey to discover Turkish music because they had Caribbean music in Dr. No and they wanted to use something slightly different. So they wanted to go Turkish. And it just sounds like Greek taverna music from a shit 60s sitcom. And Matt Monro's vocal cannot rescue that, no matter how good it is. 5.
No. Yeah, I scored it at 5.4, so I actually liked it slightly more than you did. But
and my scores are a bit, as almost most scores are relative. So if I give something a 5, it's okay.
Yeah, it's not the lowest score that I've given something on this list, but we'll get to that later.
I personally give this one a 9.
Yes, mate.
I'm very much in the opinion that he's got a great voice, and it's a great song, and I think when I was scoring this, I think it was what I perceive a Bond theme should be, to whether it's a good song or not. I haven't really scored whether I like it as a song or not. I've scored it whether it's a good Bond theme or not.
Yeah.
Because how else can you? It's theme music.
Yeah.
And look, he managed to get a really catchy lines in with the title of the film. The music's great. His voice is just like melting butter. It's incredible.
It's like silk, man.
It's silk, yeah. It's like, if we're not talking, going, we're not doing that stuff. This is the first. It's got to be, for me personally, a Bond film's got to be a bit sexy sounding, a bit mysterious,
yeah,
and just not too full on. But it's got to sound a bit big bandy, and I don't know. For me, this nails what a Bond theme should be. It should name the title a lot in a catchy, not douchey way. I think this is absolutely perfect. Like 9, because everything can be improved upon except the original Bond film. It's great as a Bond theme. That's what we should think about this as.
Yeah.
And I think this is good. Would I listen to it just in general? Not really, no. But as a Bond theme, if I listened to that when the credits are coming up, it would be perfect. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I see your point with that. And I think maybe the reason I don't really like this one is because I don't think I'd ever actually heard it before. I've definitely not seen the film. It doesn't seem particularly Bondy to me.
But what would Bondy be?
I don't know, but it's very difficult because you've got that melodrama and the brooding horns and all that kind of thing and a lot of the later themes. And this does have it. It's just maybe because I haven't heard it before, the melody doesn't seem so iconic, so it just seems maybe a bit forgettable. Maybe if I'd heard it 100 times.
I've never heard it before, but I think we should really put into concrete what we think a Bond film should be before we really talk about it. I mean, for me, it would be slightly somber, but catchy. A lot of horns to crescendos and fucking
gongs. Horns
cinematic,
and big band.
Yeah. So that for me, that's a Bond theme. Even if it's a new one.
I wouldn't say that it doesn't sound like a James Bond theme because it certainly is. It's just that lack of familiarity with me means that I'm not ranking it as highly because it's not so ingrained in my brain, so it's not as catchy. I'm in the unfortunate position where I've actually been listening to quite a lot of Andy Williams recently, and I just think their voices sound very similar. I just think because Andy Williams has more songs that I know, I prefer Andy Williams. I think I've just done Matt Monro some dirty there. It's not a bad song. It's just not one that strikes me as particularly memorable. It
all
does
my
fit the theme.
scores are based within, is it a good Bond theme compared to the other Bond themes? You know what I mean?
It has played into
Yeah.
my scoring in a lot of songs. There are certain songs which I have given higher scores because I think they fit the brief a little bit better.
It depends how you define the brief. So for me, the thing with Dr. No in 1962, and this one to a degree, is that my favourite Bond themes are the ones that reflect the music of the time that the Bond film is released. Now, the thing is, there are several Bond themes that you're going to see that come up later that you will say they reference the horn sections from the Bond theme. They have the big band sound, which I'll mark really low because for me, a Bond theme reflects the time that the film was made, not this ideal that was created with Dr. No, because what I'm looking for in a film, that's not to say that either one is right or wrong. I'm not suggesting that. So when I look at James Bond, I look at, particularly through the 60s, the sound of the themes, apart from there's one exception to this in the 60s and 70s, which is going to come up very soon, the sound of the themes changes through the 60s and 70s. So the sound of the Bond theme is reflecting the music of the time, whereas now the music that we're creating for Bond themes now is reflecting the music that was.
I disagree to a point because you're saying it's a reflective of the sound of time, but it's also got to sound a bit spy. It doesn't matter if it's up and coming music at the time and it sounds cool and everyone likes it. If it doesn't sound like a spy theme, everyone knows in their head what a spy theme should sound like. And then
because of the first song on this list.
It's Dr. No. Yeah, that's the spy theme. So I don't care what you listen to now. Anything that involves international espionage or anything like that, even if you listen to that, it sounds a bit spy-like. Or they'd cave in and just make a house-like theme where it's just din din din. Just remix a
do.
Yeah, no, remix a
Wax Mayfex twin in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just do that. They would remix some shit. But it's got to sound a bit like a spy film, and some of these new songs I just don't think it will. Even if it's a new sound, you might go, that's quite a good song. It doesn't sound like a Bond theme.
I give it a 6.5, kind of in the middle of you guys, really. I like his voice. I think it does have Bond elements, but it doesn't really go to quite the same heights that a lot of the others do.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So we'll move on to the next one, 1964's Goldfinger soundtrack. And of course, the song is Goldfinger by Shirley Bassey. It is one of the most famous of the Bond themes. I've not seen the film, but I've heard this a million times. And it's one of the definitive James Bond themes. I've scored it an 8. I don't think it's particularly spectacular, and I don't think it's the best Shirley Bassey Bond theme, but I think it's a very strong song.
I scored it an 8 because exactly the same reasons that you just said. I think it was fucking fantastic in the sense that it carried on the theme of what Al was saying about that whole spy thing, and also it was the first one that had a female vocalist and a very strong female vocalist, where James Bond is not just about the spies, the guns, and the fucking doing his stunts and stuff. It's also about the femininity. And I think this is where that strong female presence in the theme tune, hopefully, I would think, carried over into the films a little bit. Probably not. I think it's the juxtaposition between the very macho Sean Connery, I'm a man, I'm fucking doing all this stuff, but with the very, and it is sexy, like it is, her vocals are fucking sexual as hell, but also very powerful and strong. And being involved in a Bond theme was probably a bold move when they first did it. I don't know, but it worked for me. I gave it a strong 8.
I just want to say, amazing.
Yeah.
I've gone 8.5. Shirley Bassey's voice is really powerful too, but the instrumental parts for me are just like, you hear that and it just brings me back to my childhood. And I think I did like this Shirley Bassey out of the trilogy best, but yeah, I like this one a lot.
It's one of those ones where it's very iconic and everyone knows it, but I think I remember liking it more than when I actually listened to it. It's actually not that good a song. It's all right. The vocals are pretty good. The chorus is good. But lyrically, it's a bit like, Spider does this.
Yeah.
It's just a bit rubbish. It's a little bit.
I think you have to get over that with a lot of these songs because they're written about a movie
Yeah, but there are degrees of it.
Some of them are nonsense, and I will
I
touch
gave
on
this
them.
a 7 because I do think it's a good Bond theme and it's iconic for a reason and all that stuff. But as I said, I'm scoring amongst Bond films, so I'm not scoring my personal opinions. But it wasn't quite as good as I remember it being, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a 7 because it is a good Bond theme. But I actually prefer the last one from Russia with Love. I thought it was way better.
I preferred the last one as well. The only reason this song is in the film is because they presented it to Harry Saltzman, the producer, too late to get a replacement. Because Harry Saltzman's first response on hearing this was, "That's the worst fucking song I've ever heard in my fucking life."
He obviously hasn't listened to Insane Clown Posse, but
that didn't exist in 90s.
Pausing your rant for that is not a flippant comment you can make. Hocus Pocus is a good song. Continue.
That is the actual response from the producer of the film. The lyrics are written by Anthony Newley and Leslie Brickus, who's done far better things. I'm not sure Anthony Newley has, particularly with John Barry. So John Barry's horn parts are in it, which is great, but that's pretty much the only thing that I like about this song. Anthony Newley recorded the original demo vocals and then refused to allow his vocals to be used in the film because he thought the lyrics for the song were too weird, in inverted commas. So that tells you when Al goes, the lyrics for the song aren't very good. The lyrics for the song, even the guy who wrote them thought they weren't very good. My other problem with this song is that Shirley Bassey made her name in musical theatre in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And so the way she performs this song already sounded dated when she did it. She does do one of her three Bond themes I do really like. This isn't it. She just fucking belts it the whole way through.
I did write, actually. This reminds me of a musical.
But that's what she's famous for. And there's only one Bond theme she doesn't do that on, and she does it on this one. She made her name doing musicals, and she just belts it the whole way through. And the other interesting bit of trivia about this particular song is that Jimmy Page played acoustic guitar on the soundtrack for this particular film, just out of interest. Although he doesn't play guitar on this track because the guy who played the lead guitar on the film before always took precedence. So it is Vic Slick, who was the guy who did the 2 previous films. Yeah, so I gave it a 4. It's great.
Rough. That's pretty rough.
Still the first Bond theme that had a female vocalist. It's still the first where it was like, hang on, the female protagonist of the film is important here. And that was what it was alluding to.
You're saying that to Tom, but he's pretty much thinking, it's like, I was the first person to shit the bed. It's not good.
Well, okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Another iconic James Bond theme, at least by measure of the fact that I knew it before. From 1965, it is the title track from Thunderball, called Thunderball, and it's by Tom Jones. I think it's brilliant. Say whatever you like about Tom Jones, I think he sounds fantastic here. That last note is so powerful, he actually fainted after recording it, according to his own story. Those opening horns are just as familiar as the horns from the previous track. I can't quite get the Austin Powers use out of my head, though. I always associate the Thunderball opening with Austin Powers because they use a lot of Thunderball music in that film. I think it may be the second one. I scored this 8.3. Again, I think the lyrics are nonsense because I don't know the film, but to me, it sounds good.
I agree with you. I scored it an 8 just because it sounds amazing. And his voice, he is belting it out. And you can't replicate that, really. It's just really cool, I thought, actually. I don't really have much more to say other than, again, the same with all of these tracks. In the early stages of James Bond, it's a lot of instrumentation. It's a lot of orchestration done really well with an extremely strong vocalist.
For me, it's like the same as from Russia with Love. When you want a Bond film, you want something that sounds a bit sexy, a little bit mysterious, and it has spy vibes all the way through the song, doesn't it? We all know what a horror soundtrack sounds like, even if there's about 1,000 different artists doing it. It's one of those things. Spy does have his own genre, and this is it. Great vocals. Lyrics are a bit lacking as usual because it's James Bond.
When you haven't seen the film, you're like, what is this about? I have no idea.
But I think it's really good. I gave this one an 8. Yeah, no, I did give it an 8. I have a look on my phone. It's an 8. I gave this one. As far as Bond film themes go, this is top tier. Tom will agree because he's rubbing his head a lot.
Oh no, I'm gonna sound like such an asshole.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I don't think you know what Bond themes is supposed to sound like.
Oh, hang on. I've seen more Bond films than you have.
Yeah, but you don't get the tone apparently. Tone is a big deal when it comes to theme.
My favourite Bond themes come up later. These are not them. This one's not getting any better. In fact, it gets worse.
Can we all just agree Tom's wrong for this discussion and just get rid of his scores?
I think he's just missed the memo. These are Bond
Yeah,
themes,
yeah,
not
I
songs should rate as songs on their own.
My problem with this song, right, is that this song was originally sung by Dionne Warwick, which would have sounded fantastic. But because her and Shirley Bassey fell out, they sued each other, so neither song got released. And then they called Tom Jones in at the last minute. It's so cobbled together. Originally, Leslie Brickus wrote the lyrics to a song that was going to be the theme tune called Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang, which got rejected by the producers. Hardly surprising, really, with a title like that. And they parachuted Don Black in with a couple of days to write the lyrics. And then they threw Tom Jones in with a day to go. And I will never like Tom Jones's vocal. I just won't. It's that sort of semi-operatic style. He's note perfect throughout it, but the tone of his voice just turns me off. I much prefer Matt Monroe's vocal. This style of music was already dated when this track came out. The Beatles had just released Rubber Soul when this track came out. And the other thing that annoys me is that Johnny Cash submitted a song to be the theme song for this, where the lyrics actually made sense. He sings through the plot of the film, and you can actually hear it on some of his live bootlegs. So I'd much rather have Johnny Cash's song, 2.5.
All of it doesn't make a difference to whether the song's good or not for a Bond film. Does it matter who originally would have sang on it?
I also think that Tom Jones is more suitable for a James Bond theme than Dionne Warwick. She sang Walk On By and Heartbreaker.
But she's got a lovely voice.
She's got a lovely voice, but it's not as powerful as Tom Jones.
I did quite a lot of research for this one. Having gone through it, Dionne Warwick has been in the running for the most Bond themes without ever singing one, because the producers have wanted her on like all of the films in the 60s and the early 70s. Dionne Warwick's always like the number one they want, who's never done it.
I'm with Al on this. I've done no research, and I'm literally just listening to the songs
Winging
based on the fact that they are just Bond themes. They're not songs that were released to be listened to as a part on their own. They were literally made to be played over the opening credits with the circle and the guy with the gun and the dancing girl silhouettes and stuff. And that's how I listen to them.
It'd be like judging Bon Jovi if they did the Simpsons theme.
Exactly.
You can't really put it against their other catalogues or who may or may not have been put in.
Is this a good Bond theme or is it not?
I don't like it. I started watching with the 80s Bond films. So I didn't start at the beginning. I started with some films that are going to come up later. And because I started with the films that come up later, the films that come up later, for me, are better Bond themes than this. And I stand by my score.
I totally respect your score, but I literally have only listened to these songs today based on the fact that they are Bond themes. I've not listened to them as standalone songs, which may be wrong on my part.
I didn't love it either. I'm not a big fan of Tom Jones's voice, which I'm not
the only asshole.
I didn't go 2.5, but I like the horns. I like the bit at the beginning. It's similar to the original soundtrack, isn't it? The original song, but it doesn't quite go there. And like you said, it's like Austin Powers, which, let's be honest, the Austin Powers movies are better than the Bond movies. Let's just throw that out there so everyone hates me. I went 5.5.
Okay.
So in the middle.
Next is the 1967 James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice, and the theme tune to that was Frank Sinatra's daughter, Nancy, with the song You Only Live Twice. I'd not heard this before.
Millennia.
Yes, the first thing I noted is that Robbie Williams sampled the strings for the hit Millennium, which is not a song I like. But I actually like this. It's the highest one I've scored other than the James Bond theme. I think it's quite a nice slice of 60s pop. It brings in that fuzz guitar tone. And I think it's a good song. It's not my favourite of the whole bunch, but it's the first one that sounds like a contemporary pop song, as opposed to show tunes or a major ballad.
A bombastic.
It's more like a contemporary song that's fitting in with the 60s. I like it because of that. Again, lyrics I can't really understand what it's getting at. I haven't seen the film, but Nancy Sinatra seems to do a good job. Yeah, it definitely fits the bill. I've scored it an 8.4.
Dan, I gave it a 10 simply because of all the things you just said. It went away from that whole big band classic 30s thing to like contemporary 60s music of this swinging 60s. I like Nancy Sinatra anyway, but it was totally that whole like flowery shirt, Mary Quant miniskirt thing going on, the whole like Soho London bullshit or whatever was going on back then. The hipsters of their day, maybe,
Yeah.
but it's totally swinging 60s London sound, and I fucking loved it. It's very retro, but at the time would have been extremely contemporary. They would have been influenced by the likes of the psychedelia the Rolling Stones were playing around with, and Velvet Underground were.
Yeah,
It's a little bit more than that. So the reason why this song exists as it does is because John Barry, who is still one of the lead writers on it, he did all the other scores. There's a really big shift between the last film and this film. And there is one really important film that John Barry did between the last film and this one. And that's that he did the score to Born Free, which is where he moves.
is sung by Matt Monro, I believe.
Yeah, it is also sung by Matt Monro. But he does the whole soundtrack, and he moves away from horns being his predominant instrument to strings being the predominant instrument, which is why you see the massive difference in sound between The Last Thunderball and this film.
So, Tom, do you actually like this one?
Yeah, this is my fourth favourite of all of them. I gave this an 8. And what I love about it is Nancy Sinatra's vocal on this is perfect. It's understated compared to the sort of open-throated belting we had to deal with Goldfinger. Leslie Bricusse did the lyrics. Having watched the film, the lyrics are really good, although he had more than one attempt at the lyrics. So the reason why the lyrics are quite good is he wrote the lyrics once, and they recorded a version with Judy Rogers, who's the one who did the song The Wedding, and then they scrapped it to make this version instead. And they originally offered it to Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra, yeah.
Yep. Frank Sinatra.
It was Cubby Broccoli, a wonderful name, the film's producer.
Yeah. And his actual name's Albert, I believe. And he turned it down and said, you should give it to my daughter. And the producers went, oh, we want to get Aretha Franklin to do it. And I'm so glad that they stuck with Nancy Sinatra, because she is perfect on this. The string parts... That string rundown is beautiful. The song, I think, is the most covered James Bond theme overall.
It's weird because I've never heard it.
Just been living under a rock.
I've been living under a James Bond free rock. I don't know. I've obviously heard Millennium and the sample a million times, but I just never...
It's beautiful and it's really well done. The only really disappointing thing is Mark Lanigan covered this on his covers album in 2013. And he covers it beautifully because his voice suits it perfectly, but he doesn't have the string rundown, so instantly it loses something. He does it on an acoustic guitar. But yeah, I love this. 8 out of 10.
I didn't go as high, but I really enjoyed it. I pretty much, as a general rule with a lot of these, if it mentions the film's name, I'll bump it up a little bit anyway, because I like that. It's like the Family Guy thing where Peter Griffin gets really excited when the actors mention the name of the film in the film.
Yeah.
I'm always...
They said the thing.
They said the thing, exactly. So I went for a 7, which, I don't know, might be a bit harsh, but I really enjoyed it. It's a good song without being incredible.
I like the violin hook, but other than that, it's forgettable. 6 out of 10.
Okay.
That's kind of it, really.
That is currently scoring a total of 38.4 points. So that's currently in second position. We'll move on to the next one. The film is On Her Majesty's Secret Service from 1969. The song that was released as the vocal theme for it is We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong. And I love this song. It's one of the only ones that I would listen to, and it works as a non-Bond theme. I think it's actually quite popular at weddings, and you can hear why. It's a bit more subtle than a lot of the other ones.
You haven't seen the film, have you, Dan?
I haven't seen the film. No.
Having not seen the film, you shouldn't recommend that people play this at weddings.
Isn't it played at funerals?
If you're thinking about playing this at your wedding, don't watch the film and then realise what it's about and don't. Can we give a spoiler for a film that was released?
Yeah, of course you can give a spoiler.
This song plays, he gets married, he's driving down the road, his wife gets caught in crossfire, and then this song plays.
Oh, so you didn't really have much time then, I guess.
No, so it should not be played at weddings.
No, but what do you think of the song, though?
I actually really like it. So I love Louis Armstrong's voice. I love his voice. The thing that really upsets me about this song, there's only one, the main thing that marks it down for me is that by the time they recorded this song, he was too ill to play the trumpet. So it's not him playing the trumpet on it. And you can tell because his trumpet playing's just so much more brash. And I wanted that. So this is where John Barry reckons this is his favourite of his Bond themes.
Yes, I've got that in my notes.
And Hal David wrote the lyrics for this, and he's a lot more subtle at lyric writing than Leslie Brickus.
Oh, Hal David's one of the greatest lyric writers of all time.
He's had a few misses, let's be fair. Yes, he's made some of the greatest lyrics.
It usually requires Burt Bacharach to make it complete, but I mean, you can't take anything away from the lyrics of him.
Yeah, he's also one of the most prolific. So there is a bit of a monkeys and typewriters effect, but when he gets it right, he's very right. And so the lyrics are better. I think there are a couple of problems I have with this track. One is obviously Satchmo not playing the trumpet. Two, this song is very much an homage to What a Wonderful World that came out 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
And you can hear that they've done that. Three is that John Barry's following on from the orchestral tone that he had in You Only Live Twice. It's following on the same thing. And I don't think he does it quite as well here. I think the orchestra's a little bit more understated in a way that I don't enjoy so much. And the last one is because the My Bloody Valentine cover from 1994 is fantastic.
Oh, I've not heard that.
That wasn't really around when it first came out, to be fair.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't. But the 1994 My Bloody Valentine cover was on a Guinness advert, which used to be on between films at the only times I ever watched TV at my grandparents' house. So I remember the My Bloody Valentine version before I remember this because I was
Nostalgia.
7. Yeah, exactly. So nostalgia. So I gave this a 7.5, which is still one of the highest scores I gave any of them. So I do really like this one still because Louis Armstrong could sing the phone book and I'd listen to it. And I think he's probably my second or third favorite singer on this list. Not necessarily because it's not all about hitting all the notes. It's having a timbre to your voice that makes me want to listen to it.
I gave it a 5. The reason I gave it a 5 was because go either side of the 5, there's the fact that everything Tom's just said, okay? And there's the other 5 where it's just been overplayed and I can't be asked, to be honest with you. I hear it and I'm like, I've heard it before so many times. It has no emotional weight to me whatsoever anymore because I've just heard it too many times. Wedding discos. It's, oh my God, this fucking song. I listened to it today and I was like, it's fucking amazing. It's really well made and the vocals are incredible, but I could not connect in any way because I've just heard it too many times. It is literally the equivalent of Creep by Radiohead for me.
Another really good song, yeah.
Yeah, after hearing it a million times, it's like all of the stuff that was good about it has been stripped away to it being almost like it's a musical cliche for me. That's why I gave it a 5.
I think his voice is one of the best voices in the world, let alone on this list. I absolutely adore Louis Armstrong's voice. I think it's a really beautiful song. I don't know if it's really the most Bond theme, but like Tom said, having seen the film, it really does fit what happens in the film. Unlike the other ones on this list, though, it's not the title theme. It's not played at the beginning of the film. It's right at the end when something happens. And I scored an 8 because I just really enjoy the sound. It just makes me chill and feel things, which not every song on this list does at all because they're all ridiculous. I didn't realize that it was actually from this film because I've seen this film years and years ago and I forgot it was on here. I also knew it from the Guinness advert like Tom.
It's a weird one because most of the Bond films, the intro track and the sort of outro track are the same. This film is an example where the intro is an instrumental that's almost a bit like a riff on the early James Bond theme, but it proves that John Barry needed Monty Norman's guitar line because it's not as good. And there's another one later that's coming up that very famously has a different intro and outro track. This is another one where the intro's the orchestral piece. And actually, this is, I think, my second favourite Bond film that this is from, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I think George Lazenby is my second favourite Bond after Timothy Dalton. I realised
that is the most controversial thing you've said, is those are the two best Bonds, like the two that everybody thinks are the worst.
Timothy Dalton is the best Bond by a mile, and he's in the best Bond films as well.
And Hot Fuzz, yeah.
I like the way you say films plural. He was only in one.
Timothy Dalton.
Lazenby was.
Dalton, right.
Yeah. Timothy Dalton is the best. He was in several. And George Lazenby is my second favourite.
Pierce Brosnan's the best Bond. We all know it.
With.
Then Daniel Craig.
Whoever you identify as Bond is who you generally have grown up with. I think that most people, like our parents, would be more like have the argument of Roger Moore or Sean Connery, but for us, it's just, we have Pierce Brosnan.
I have no favourite Bond. I have no opinions on that matter.
Brosnan's the best.
I think he summed up the sophistication and comedy the best. I don't know.
I agree.
I like the darkness of Dalton. I think Dalton did darkness better than Craig did, despite what popular opinion dictates.
I'm with you.
Anyway, can we go back to the song?
I'm going to give this song 4. It sounds quite Bondy, but it just seems a bit off as a theme tune. It doesn't sound like a theme tune for a film. It sounds just like a song.
It wasn't the theme tune. Exactly, that's the problem. It was the end music, if you like. Yeah,
you can tell, and
If I was scoring this based on how good of a Bond theme it was, it wouldn't do very well. But I've scored it an 8.8 because I think it's a brilliant song.
It's a good song. His vocals are incredible, but
we'll go into the 70s now, so get your flares on. I don't know if there are many flares in James Bond movies, actually. Next one is 1971's Diamonds Are Forever, with the song Diamonds Are Forever by Shirley Bassey returning to the vocal booth. I love this one. I think it's the best one she did. It shows how great it is when you can take that song 30 years later and Kanye West can make a great single from it that doesn't sound like it's anything to do with James Bond, but yet uses the chorus of the song. It sounds fantastic. The production is amazing. Her voice is great. She certainly deserves to be the first person to record 2 Bond themes. I think it's far less cheesy than Goldfinger in terms of the fact that it's not called Goldfinger. It's not quite as good as the last one for me. It's an 8.5, but I think it's a strong song.
I gave it a 6, but I want to refer back to something you just said about production. If you're going to record a Bond theme, you're going to have the best production team you could ever possibly have. So every single song on this list is going to be produced fucking perfect.
No. I know. I'm not having that.
There's one in there that really doesn't.
Yeah, there is
maybe
one.
2.
We'll get there.
We'll get there in a bit. But my point is, with this song, it's great, and production's great and stuff. But no, it's fair to middling, isn't it? Really, it's just a standard Bond thing.
I disagree. Yeah. I really like the hook on it.
Yeah.
Like I like the hook. I gave Goldfinger 7, so I'm gonna give this one 8 because I think it's better from Shirley. And it's cool. It's when you first start listening to it, it doesn't sound like it should quite be a Bond film.
No.
But then as soon as it starts and once it kicks in, you go, actually, no, this is Bond was stuck. Which is nice. It's slightly different to the usual why we see the Bond theme, but still close enough where I'm pretty happy. It's catchy, man.
John Barry's really trying really hard to mix it up with this one. So he's throwing in that sort of almost funk breakdown about halfway through. The synth intro actually sounds really ahead of its time, but the problem for me is that the vocal performance is still 1950s musical theatre. It is Shirley Bassey's second best vocal performance for me, but it's really important to note, before I give my score, it's not my lowest by a long way, but Harry Saltzman, the producer, also hated this one because once again, John Barry and Don Black submitted it so late that he couldn't change it because he also didn't want to put this one in either. 4.5. But I had to preface the fact I was giving it a 4.5. It's not bad. 4 is not a bad. 4 to 6 is okay.
No, I'm sorry. When you said earlier 5 is average, I was borderline not agreeing there. But when you're saying 4 is okay, 4 is not in the okay realm. 4 is in the middling at best, but not that good.
Yeah, that's what I mean by it's like just okay. It's a 4.5 for me. I really hate that fucking belting vocal. I've worked in musical theatre for years. I hate it.
I can
And
understand.
Shirley Bassey does it. I just hate it. And it's like she does one vocal performance coming up later where she fucking nails it. And this is not that. This is the Tom Jones and Shirley Bassey. We're Welsh musical theatre from the 50s and we're going to fucking belt it. And just, no, I hate it.
But I think that has its place in the Bond.
Yeah, it
canon.
does.
Just hearing it makes my toes curl.
Why
I
would you work
hate
in
it
musical
so much.
theatre but not like musical theatre vocals? That seems ridiculous to me.
Modern musical theatre has a degree of subtlety. This doesn't.
I really like this song. It's just funny when you hear people go, "Oh, this is shit," and then you're thinking, "Oh, I'm glad to say I like it."
Oh, you're allowed to like it.
I was listening to it at the beginning and going, "Do you know what? I prefer the Kanye song," and I do. I think I do prefer the Kanye song, which is not something that I normally would say of anything. But the Kanye song's a fucking great tune. But
it is a great. It's a great
I
tune.
still really like this. The ending to it also was phenomenal. It ends in a really exciting way. I think I agree a bit with Tom on the vocals. That's not the strength of the song for me. I really enjoy the instrumental stuff, though. It's iconic. It's just like you hear it and you go to good places. I went for an 8.5.
Nice.
Strong.
So that scores it a total of 35.5. This one is good old Cacophony Sessions' favourite Paul McCartney with his 1973 single, which is the theme song from the movie Live and Let Die. And this one is, for me, it's a classic. I actually scored it higher than the actual James Bond theme itself because I think it's just a fraction better because it actually has lyrics.
There's words and stuff.
Their lyrics, and I think the song gets a bad rap because a lot of people think that the line is, "in this ever-changing world in which we live in," which obviously is a grammatical nightmare. But the lyrics are actually, "if this ever-changing world in which we're living," which is actually grammatically correct. So all the people that are saying, "Oh no, I don't like that bit because it doesn't make any sense," fuck you, the grammar's fine. It's the first theme with no involvement from John Barry. And Bond producer Harry Saltzman, who Tom's made reference to a few times, he actually wanted Thelma Houston, but George Martyn, who produced the song, he backed his boy Paul, and we got Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Paul McCartney only signed on to write it if he could be the one to sing it.
Yeah,
that was in the small print of his contract.
It wouldn't have sounded better with Thelma Houston. We've said many times on this podcast that sometimes Paul McCartney can be hit or miss with his vocal performances, but not on this one.
I'm with you. One of the problems I have with this song is I first heard this song through the Guns N' Roses version in the 1990s.
I think a lot of us will have,
And
not me.
Not
I
you,
the original.
The Mark was 40 when this came out.
Exactly.
Guns N' Roses were just a twinkle in their mum's eye.
On the Beatles episode, I talked about how Paul McCartney, when he wrote songs post the Beatles, it's almost as if he wrote 3 different songs and mashed them all together. But because with this song, he's back in the studio with George Martin again, this is the one time where more than anything else, I think this is his best post-Beatles song by a long way. It goes between this sort of piano ballad to this orchestral interlude where they're taking on, where George Martin is aping John Barry, but I think George Martin is actually as accomplished an orchestrator as John Barry and is able to make it quite interesting. And then he's going back again. Yeah, for me, I think this is my 5th highest score against it, 7.5 for me, which is good. Including that as good. Incidentally, okay, the tuning that they used for this recording, while I was listening to it, a car alarm on a Range Rover went off outside, and this song is in the key of Range Rover car alarm. It actually is.
I was blown away when someone said to me, "If you ever want to tune a guitar, a D is the first note of the Star Wars theme."
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I tune my guitar to D all the time, every time. If I'm tuning by ear, what that is, I always get the D right first. Anyway, that aside, this for me is a 10 out of 10, simply because it's the first Bond theme where it is a standalone song where you can listen to it without it being attached to a Bond film.
Oh, I feel that way about Louis Armstrong. But
fucking good.
And the one before that as well, to be fair.
Man, I love this song. And I listened to when I was a little kid, I listened to it so much. because it had so many. It was like a suite. It was like before I knew what a suite was, lots of different parts in a musical performance. I was like, this is fucking cool. It's like, you've got this heavy riff, and then you've got this like slow section, and then you've got this. I loved every second of it. So yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 because it's just a great song on its own terms. And I didn't even know who Paul McCartney was when I first heard this. I had no musical knowledge whatsoever. I'm no Tom Fry, right? But I just heard it and was like, this is amazing. This blew my mind. I'm like, this is what music sounds like to me. But I didn't know it was part of a Bond theme. I didn't know it was attached to a film. I heard it isolated. And it was on one of those now what you call music tapes that I had in my Walkman. I'm like listening to it over and over again and rewinding it. Yeah, this is a fucking great song on its own right. It's brilliant. It's better than anything the Beatles have ever done.
Ooh, no, I don't think so.
No.
I'll go back on that.
I am joking.
We're done. We're done with that.
I'm joking with that.
I give this one a 6.5. I actually do really like this song, and I do think it's generally pretty sweet. Like, dun, 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 dun. That is iconic. If it was as we said at the start, how I'm scoring these. If it was just me as a guy listening to it, I'd probably give it an 8. As a Bond theme, I gave it a 6.5 because it is pretty cool. It's pretty upbeat. It's a good tune, but it's not very spy-like for me. It doesn't seem Bondy enough.
I
for
think
me.
the do-do-do bit makes it. I can imagine somebody prancing around.
Yeah, but it's just a little bit too up-tempo for me. I'm not, as a Bond theme, it's not sexy enough. For me, it's got to sound a bit sexy.
I think you're right. It loses some of the sultry mystery. There's no mystery to it, is there?
No,
it's just straight in your face. We're doing the action bit now, and now I'm gonna smooch the girl, and now I'm gonna do an action bit again.
Yeah, for me, it loses. Most Bond themes, within it, you know what you're gonna get a Bond film, but for this one, I feel like you're like we can all. For good or for worse, a big part of James Bond is womanizing, isn't it? We all agree. Seduction. Seduction's a big part of big part of James Bond's character.
That's totally lost in this song.
There's no seduction in this song. It's got like an upbeat, like shit's getting real theme, like spy theme tune, it is good, and I do like it. I would give it a higher score. But as a Bond theme, for me, is a 6.5 because it's a little too missing the mark. I can understand.
It's not always associated with Bond because you've got the Guns N' Roses.
Exactly. It's a great song. There's no way around it. It's a brilliant song.
The Guns N' Roses version is better.
Maybe. I'll give extra points for having a reggae breakdown and Paul McCartney avoiding the temptation to do a cod reggae accent. So I think he deserves like a point at least for resisting that.
To be fair, he's not above doing it, is he?
Yeah, he does it all the time. Yeah, so to not do it in this song is that you actually go, okay, Paul, you didn't come off as complete cringe on that record. So
he
can
is
actually
not
have
above
a point.
Giving everyone who's listening douche chills. He's not above it. He can do it.
But he doesn't on this.
He's not above white guy rapping. He's that guy.
Dan.
I professed my love for Paul McCartney on the last episode as my favorite Beatle. Not the coolest Beatle, but my favorite Beatle. And I love this as well because I find his lyrics incredible. As we've already talked about, the way this song goes, it goes places. It's not just here's a bit of music. It takes you on a journey. And that sounds really poncy, but I don't care. That's how I feel with it. Yeah. It's just cool. You listen to it and you go, fuck yeah, as a song, and I think as a Bond theme too. I disagree. I think that part makes it sound quite mysterious, the do-do bit. I went 10 out of 10. Can't get better than this.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry. I see.
Don't apologize, man.
I totally see why you give it 10. As I said, I love the song, but there's no seduction. Where's the seduction?
I'm moist.
It can't be on a Bond theme if you can't put it on a sex mix. This could
that'd be the fast moment.
This could have been a sex mix. It might be the crescendo, maybe, but that's about it.
You can't have sex to this song. I'm sorry.
The vinegar strokes.
I don't want to be thinking about Al's crescendos, man.
Yeah. Or Paul McCartney,
again,
or James Bond,
Martyn.
or Wings. No, that 10 out of 10 takes it to 43.1, which puts it second on the list only to the initial James Bond theme. The next song from 1974 and is another song with the name of the film in the title. The song is The Man with a Golden Gun, and it's Lulu. I think this one's a massive step down. I think.
Yeah.
Tom, you've mentioned several times that you think that some of these are like show tunes. And I think that this one sounds like show tunes, but she doesn't have the voice for it. I think she's by far the weakest singer that we've had. I think the song is by far and away the weakest song. I've seen this film. I thought the film was one of the cheapest action movies I've ever seen. I thought it was a terrible film with a terrible song. It should have been the theme tune to, not Miss World, but like Miss World's ripoff or something like that. Like the company that run like a knockoff version of Miss World doing a knockoff Bond theme with a knockoff. I just think this is absolutely terrible. And I scored it a 3.8.
You and I are very close on this. So John Barry, the composer, says the score for this entire film is his least favourite score that he did.
I'm not listening to the whole score, so I can't comment on that.
But having seen the film, the thing with this one is musically, it almost sounds like a really lazy attempt to update the formula of his 60s scores into the 70s. And you'd think after having a break with Live and Let Die, he'd come back and be like up for it. But I think the reason he didn't come back to the UK to film Live and Let Die is because he was going to get done for tax evasion if he came back. So he skipped a film and then he came back again and he's just cashed this one in. It's basically the Goldfinger score with added cheesy, distorted guitar. Mm-hmm. And Lulu's doing her best Shirley Bassey impression. She doesn't have the voice to carry it. But Don Black's lyrics do not really give her a lot to work with. When we go through the list up to this point, I think this is the last Don Black lyric on this list. He might have one a lot later, but this is one of the last ones. And it's not really surprising that this is the last one he does for a while, because the innuendos he throws in this are not well done or subtle. They're pretty badly done. Lyrically, he doesn't give her a lot to work with. Orchestrally, I don't think Lulu's a dreadful singer. But what they gave her to work with here, she does her best, but she is not the sexy version of Shirley Bassey, which is what they essentially wanted to hire to do this track. Yeah, it's the third worst on this list, and it's a 3.5.
But for me personally, this is the first song of our list where I've actively disliked.
Yeah.
I think it's shit. I gave it a 3 because there's still redeeming factors, even in shit songs sometimes. Her vocals are okay in it, but quite frankly, like, the lyrics are terrible. I don't know, how do you describe shit? It's just rubbish.
Smelly, usually brown.
It misses the tone. That's why I think. It misses the tone of what a Bond thing should be. It's a crap song anyway. We can all agree it's a shit song. We can all deal with a crap song if it matches the tone of a Bond film, and it completely misses the tone of a Bond film. There's no mystery. It's just, and there's that weird middle bit, which is weirdly, it's just crap. This is rubbish.
I'll give it a bit more than you guys, only because I think I'm generally being a bit more kind, probably. I didn't hate this. It doesn't have a lot going for it.
I mean, it's a strong word.
It's at least a little bit more fun than a lot of the stuff that comes a lot later than this. Some of the other things are a bit depressing and a bit boring. At least this is light-hearted and upbeat. That was all that was going for it for me.
That's
the man
not
with the golden
Bond.
gun. It's like Bond. He's cool. He's against the man with the golden gun. He's the baddie. But I don't know. I gave it a 6 because it's meh, fine, whatever. I didn't like it, but I'm nicer than you guys.
Fair enough.
Basically,
you're just wanting to avoid having people call you out in the comments.
Yeah, fuck it.
No, not really.
Smashing. As a Bond film, this is rubbish. There's no mystery, no sex appeal. There's nothing.
Plastic Bond, isn't it?
I give it a 6 as well, because a bit like what's been alluded to, it's all about the surface level of 60s counterculture kind of thing going on. It's very swinging 60s stuff.
In 1974.
There we go. They're going for the
No, you're right. It is very swinging 60s
The
in
swinging
1974.
60s has got nothing to do with Bond. Bond at no point ever has been swinging 60s in tone. Never.
No.
If everyone was thinking of Bond, there's no way you'd think he was like a liberal. You think he's a Tory.
He's probably UKIP.
It's just out of time. It's way too retro. Like, the way the Dandy Warhols did retro was really great. They looked back and they were like, this was a cool time, and they fucking did their music in a sense. It was like, look back in the past and look at all the cool stuff that was going on. And that's what this song is doing. It's look at all the cool stuff that was going on with James Bond, but without any of the mystery, without any of the fucking deeper, darker meaningness, that whatever that means. I'd give it a 6 because it was energetic and it was upbeat and everything. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's meaningless at the end of the day. It doesn't.
Quite a shallow song, isn't it?
It's very shallow, but it's still fun. I still enjoyed listening to it above some of the stuff that came earlier, which is a bit more deep and dark. It was a good laugh.
Everything you've just said isn't what a Bond theme should be. Maybe I'm too much of a stickler for this.
That's exactly what I'm saying. There needs to be the light in the dark. This song is all about the light. It's all about the James Bond walking into a casino with his suit on, having a good time and all stuff. And there was none of the tortured spy stuff going on.
We've said I said this before. Spy theme is as strong as a music tone as you can go to horror theme. There are certain scales, there are certain tones, there are certain heart. It is that bigger genre when it comes to theme music that you can tell instantly it is or isn't, and this instantly isn't a spy theme.
No, this is basically I'm a spy. I've got unlimited amount of disposable cash to spend that the government are giving me and enjoying life.
Let's be closer to a comedy spy film. It's just a bit kooky. It's almost Austin Powers.
Yeah,
it
is.
Exactly.
Actually,
yes.
It is very Austin Powers. It's the Austin Powers of the Bond themes. It really is.
I don't think it's clever enough to be an Austin Powers theme.
Don Black's lyrics are shite.
Yeah, it's the way I would describe this is clunky.
It makes Prince's innuendos look really clever.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Yeah.
To be fair, I deleted that from my notes, actually. It sounds like Prince wrote it. I actually thought that for this song.
You've clearly never heard a Prince song.
I thought I didn't want to discuss it on the head because I thought it'd be an argument.
So that song scored in total then 22.3, making it the lowest scoring so far by at least 10 points. Yeah, that's definitively the worst Bond theme so far.
According to us.
According to us, yeah. But
which is gospel.
I believe it's the only one that never charted in the US or UK as well.
So we're right. We're right then. We're right. No one else liked it either.
So even though I've seen the film, I didn't remember the song. And I've listened to it, maybe 5 times in the last week for this show. And I can barely remember it now. It's fading. It's not a good song. But we'll move on to the next song, which is from 1977. And it's from the Spy Who Loved Me soundtrack. One that doesn't feature the name of the film in the title, but it is Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon. Clang, clang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang, clang-a-lang. Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest.
Nobody does.
No, we've been tuning into
Half
Radio
as
Norwich,
good
but-
as you. That's one of my favourite Alan Partridge moments in any of the series or movies or podcasts or whatever it is that he's done. And that's how I know this song. That's how I was introduced to Nobody Does It Better. However, I love this song. I think it's brilliant. I think that Carly Simon, the way she sings it, she's not like the other vocalists in that she doesn't have a belting voice. So you could put her in the same category as maybe a Nancy Sinatra or a Lulu before her.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that she has this earnestness to her voice and the way that she writes her songs. She is the only person on this list to take a Bond woman and make her sound like a main character of the film. The main character of this song is not James Bond. It's the person he has jilted. And I love that because it's a very big departure from what the other songs have tried to be about. And at the same time, it still feels like a Bond theme because it's got that kind of romance to it. It's mysterious.
I feel like if a female was to sing From Russia with Love, that's what it got for me.
It's a way better song than that for me, but
No, but tone-wise.
yeah, tone-wise, you're right. You're right on that. Yeah.
This song is fantastic, but you would expect it to be when you look at who the 2 writers are. You've got Marvin Hamlish, who is one of only 2 composers in history to win a PEGOT, which is a Pulitzer, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony.
Wow.
He's won all of those, and he wrote it. He wrote the music with his then girlfriend, wrote the lyrics, who was Carol Sager, who was then Mrs. Burt Bacharach. You've got some pretty big chops there writing that music. And then apparently they got Carly Simon in to sing it. And this is one of the few occasions where a James Bond team gets their first choice vocalist in. And they got their first choice vocalist in because Carol Sager listened to You're So Vain which is an absolute banger, by the way.
Yeah, undeniable banger.
Yeah, Carly Simon,
You're So
yeah,
No,
that's
it's
got.
not. I hate
come
that song
on.
so much.
Because you're so vain.
hate that
That's
song.
because you think that song is about you.
Yeah, it's a
It
banger.
is
But
about me.
But anyway, the AFI voted it like 67th greatest film song of all time. It's fantastic. Carly Simon's vocal delivery is perfect.
Yeah.
She could belt it, but doesn't. It's one of the best vocal deliveries on here. The melody of the song's nicer. Marvin Hamlish references James Barry without being overt about it, like some of the other composers on this, particularly who are going to come up a lot later. They overdo the reference, whereas this time he references it just enough so it still sounds like a James Bond theme. But yeah, 8.5, second best on this list.
I give this one a 9. It's very hard to still be within James Bond theme for me, but still be different. And I think this did just enough to stay in the James Bond theme for me. I think it's with the piano. When it goes up, it's not Bond, but when it goes back down the scale, that's when it sounds somber and it sounds a bit more. That's when, for me, it sounds Bondy. And the vocal performance is incredible. And it's just so good. It's a great song, driven with emotion, but also just does enough to be new, but still stay within the realm of what a Bond theme should be.
What Lulu didn't do,
yes.
And I'd say it's not Lulu's fault, in that the Bond themes that I've liked, you will notice that I've liked because they're reflecting the music that was popular at the time and doing a good pop song of what was popular at the time. So this song, from the year it was released, sounded current. It must have done. It stayed in the chart for fucking months.
Yeah, it was a big hit.
It was a big hit. And so it stayed in the chart for months because it sounded current and it was a pop song that worked really well with the modern music at the time.
This finished the year-end charts. It was the 49th biggest selling single in the UK, and it finished 83rd on US Billboard Hot 100 for the year, but number 1 on the adult contemporary chart for the year. Yeah. So it did big numbers by the year end. It's the first one for me since Nancy Sinatra that sounds like it's just a song that sounds like a contemporary song from the time that happens to be a Bond theme and is also very good. So yeah, I love it. I've scored it. What did I score? I scored an 8.9.
I can't improve on that. I've gone 7.5. I like it. I think it's a really good song. It's a love song in a way.
Yeah.
Like a jilted love song, like a love to hate, I've been broken love song.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
It's just slightly off the line of being Bondy for me, which is why I knocked it a little bit.
Yeah, it was close.
It's a good song, but 7.5. That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have swore at the end about like 7.5. Bitch.
It's a difficult song for me to rate because, like, I cannot get past the misogyny of James Bond. I cannot get past it. It will not leave me alone, and I cannot get past it. And this song encapsulates everything I think about the misogyny of James Bond, where he's a groomer, basically, isn't he?
This song's written from the female perspective.
Yeah, that's why I like it, because it's actually the only time, I think, in the whole of the lore of James Bond music, this is the only time I think we hear from the perspective of the woman that he's fucked over. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the only theme told from that perspective. It certainly feels like it, and that's why I love it.
That's my problem with it. It's like it's seen from the perspective of a woman who's been groomed by James Bond, who's going to fuck her over and then fuck off. And I can't get past that. He's gone seduced her and everything, and then I'm off doing my spy thing, and she's left bereft and heartbroken and stuff, and I just can't get over it. That's why I gave it a 5, because like song wise it's beautiful, it's amazing, but like lyrically it's like there's a heartbroken woman, totally heartbroken. She's fallen in love with this guy who's basically charmed her into his like weird life or whatever, and now he's just gone and she's left picking up the broken pieces, and I don't like it. I really don't. This is a woman who has been totally Andrew Tated.
Oh, come on. This is like your fucking theme. I bet you bettered many a misses in your time. This is the lay theme. There are girls all stricken around Cornwall who have been laid down with lacy.
I love the fact you use the term stricken. They're all stricken around Cornwall.
Been stricken. They have been stricken down with your mighty phallus.
Martin thinks that he is better than James Bond, and therefore the title is incorrect.
The whole song is about nobody does it better and everything, and then he just disappears. He's just gone off in his spy world, and she's left to pick up the pieces and get on with their life somehow.
You realise you've marked that down by victim shaming. You're basically going, I'm marking this down because I'm victim shaming this woman.
Not at all. Survivors. We don't call them victims. We call them survivors, man. It's one of the most toxic songs I've ever heard.
I don't think that.
That point would stand if it was sung by somebody else. I think if you had just either one of the show tunes, bellowy voices that isn't really personalised on it, it would be like that. But because it's Carly Simon, and she's not very happy, she's cynical of the whole thing, and she doesn't just take it lying down. I think when she says nobody does it better, she is basically saying, James Bond, you're a fucking asshole.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
That's how I read this song. Maybe it's because it's coming from Carly Simon and she did You're So Vain and songs like that. But I think the way she sings it is so deliberate that she's being sarcastic. And she's calling out James Bond. And that's why I love this song, because it's the only song that calls James Bond out for being an asshole in the most wonderfully sarcastic way, without it being a girl power feminist anthem or anything like that. This is years before any of that. It's what they could get away with in those days. She didn't write the song, but the way she delivers it, it's not coming from a genuine place. I don't think Carly Simon is meant to be singing this, saying, James Bond, nobody does it better. I think she's saying, James Bond, what a fucking hero. Nobody does it better than James Bond. What a wonderful man. That's why he loved me. That's how I read that song. And that's why I score it so highly. Whereas I think you're taking it at face value.
In the film, they end up together at the end, so... I don't know.
Okay, I haven't seen the film, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
The film is a script, but I think Dan has made me look at it a little bit differently, actually. Yeah, thank you for that, but I still find it just a misogynist, I can't do any better, this man is better than me, look how great he is thing. And it sits really badly with me, and I don't like it. Especially in the context of Bond films, where it is literally like, Bond is an older man who grooms young women. That's what happens in Bond films.
Yeah. It's not that much older. You're talking like it's like Sean Connery in his 70s getting a 14-year-old. No,
he also doesn't have an age because he is multiple people. So
that's true.
I totally see your point, Martyn.
This song sits really uncomfortably with me, and
which
it really does.
Is a fair observation. If it does, you can't score past that, can you?
Roger Moore was 50 when this came out of interest, and the lady
is now married to Ringo Starr.
Was 30, so it's, yeah.
Exactly.
We're going to move on to the last song of the 70s and the last song for part one of this evening's podcast. And we're more appropriate to end up on then another Shirley Bassey track. The third one, making her the only person to have done 3 James Bond themes. And also, unusually, this one was recorded in Paris. It is Moonraker from Moonraker. And I think this one is a 6.5. I think it's nonsense, with a more subtle performance from Shirley Bassey, but that's not what I want from Shirley Bassey.
I'm sorry.
Go on.
I'm just laughing at the fact you said the first person to do 3. She's also like the only one to do 2.
Yeah, but it goes without saying, she's expanded on her legend by doing 3, and nobody does it better than Shirley Bassey, maybe. But yeah, this one's average. It's not really a very good. I think for me, the reason why I don't like this song is because I haven't seen Moonraker, and the idea of somebody raking the moon does not seem like a James Bond film to me. That sounds more like a Wallace and Gromit film. All I can picture is Shirley Bassey being told, don't sing it like the other ones. It's not about the same things. This one is about a guy who goes to the moon and makes like pretty shapes on it. And therefore, the song's a little bit more boring and nonsense, lacking in direction, and I just don't think it's very good. It's a 6.5.
I gave this one a 6 purely because this is a good example of something that ticks all the boxes, but it's just too generic to be good.
Yeah.
It does everything you want from a Bond film. It's the opposite of a lot of the other points I've been making, but it does everything right, but not as good as before, or it's nothing.
It's very derivative.
Good. It's very derivative. It's just, it's all right. It's not bad. It's just, I'd be bummed out if I was watching start of a Bond film and this came on.
The film is a good one. It's a really good film.
It
but-
is a good film.
If you asked me to sing it now, I would say it goes Moonraker, and it doesn't.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'd think.
That is a very fair point.
This
Tom's going to
is-
say it's the best Shirley Bassey one, and he's
Yeah.
completely...
Yeah,
I know he's been building to it all episode. As soon as he said there's one that's a lot better, I'm like, he's going to say Moonraker, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. It's so derivative of every other Bond theme. If you give me a backstory which has got nothing to do with the sound of the
Yeah.
actual song.
Because the
No,
writer
so
is
annoyed.
X or Y,
I
it's
know.
better.
If you tell me the songwriter once rewrote Happy Birthday for something, I don't know,
No.
just no.
Shirley Bassey's vocal performance on this is better than her vocal performance on either Diamonds and Forever or on Goldfinger.
From a subtlety perspective, yeah.
From a technical perspective, not even subtlety. From a
don't know
technical
about that.
perspective, absolutely. I work in musical theatre with singers. She's using multiple facets of her voice. She's varying between chest and head voice. She's manipulating the point at which she's breaking. She's not just belting the fuck out of it. She rescues this song. So this song was a shit song. Paul Williams wrote the lyrics. They all hated. They brought Hal David in instead. John Barry's given up the brass heavy sound because he's decided to go into his 80s phase, which he used in Somewhere in Time, which is really Somewhere in Time. The
God, I
soundtrack's
cannot
good.
wait to talk about the 80s era.
Yeah, John Barry ruins this song, not Shirley Bassey. John Barry's decided he's not going to do brass heavy stuff anymore, but he's not really learned how to orchestrate anything else, like the James Bond theme. It's all about the brass section, right? You listen to Goldfinger, the best bits of it are the brass section.
Yeah.
So we've still got John Barry doing it. And he's decided that after having done The Man with the Golden Gun, which was absolute shit, he's not going to do brass anymore. It's basically the orchestra equivalent of cutting off your nose to spite your face. Admittedly, when he goes on to do films in the 80s, like Somewhere in Time, he doesn't have the brass section. It works perfectly well. And he did really Born Free, came out pretty well. The thing that upsets me about this is that they tried to get Kate Bush to sing it. And I would have loved to have heard Kate Bush do this.
That's a weird one because that's not a name I expected you to say. But this is one that I did earmark. I think if they had got somebody else to sing it, I could have been more on board with it because it's more of an R&B. Someone like a Marvin Gaye or something like that would have done a better job.
Yeah.
If they had gone in with this like sensuality vibe to it, it would have been good, but it's just not.
Shirley Bassey was like fourth choice. There were a few other people, but Kate Bush was in the running. Shirley Bassey's vocal on this, the way she controls it, is the most impressive. So for me, this
I can
is
see about the control, yeah.
Yeah, this is a 6.5 from me as well. What's funny is her in interviews, when she talks about it, she's like, I don't feel like this is my James Bond theme, and she's barely performed it, which she performed the other two loads.
Because they're better songs.
I like this song better than either of the other two that she did. I think lyrically, Hal David came in and has managed to make a decent song with the title Moonraker. The lyrics in this are better than the lyrics in Goldfinger.
Can somebody explain to me what a Moonraker is?
It's a big ship, isn't it?
Okay, so it's not a man whose plan was to write "fuck you" on the moon with a rake. That would have been great. I've suddenly got an idea for a script, guys.
Okay, so it means...
Fuck you, Tom. It's on the moon.
The Moonraker is a moon sail.
Ah, okay. I know nothing about sailing either.
Oh.
There you go. I can Google really quick while still looking at the camera.
For me, it's the worst of the Shirley Bassey songs. I get what
Yeah.
you're saying about her vocal performance being all right. And yeah, that's probably true. But the vocals weren't the strength of the other songs anyway. They were just really good pieces of music, really good songs.
It was about the melodrama, I think.
It was. This one, to me, is bland. It's boring. It doesn't really do anything.
The fact it's got some dynamic range, even if it's not as strong a song, if they put some dynamic range in the other songs, I'll probably like them more.
As a sci-fi kid, like I love sci-fi, and it's probably one of my favorite James Bond films as a kid because it had
Sorry for
space in
ruining
it,
it.
didn't it? It had like rocket ships and stuff, you know.
It was nice for you because they thought the world was flat up until that point. And then they looked up and there's a big fucking James Bond weapon in the sky. It's like, how did I get there?
It was James Bond that proved the world was round.
Yeah, it was actually.
But no, I was into sci-fi, so this was my favorite. Like of all the Bond films, this was my favorite because it had spaceships and it had Jaws in it as well.
Oh, is this the one with Jaws in it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. It was fucking crazy back in the 80s that we lived in back in those days. But as far as the theme tune, absolutely forgettable for me.
Yeah.
Personally.
Moonraker, wider than a moon. We're crossing the moon in style.
Dan's right. Every time in my head, I think, what's the music theme? I go, Moonraker.
Yeah.
The music had no bearing on any part of the film for me. It was all about space shuttles going to space and stuff. And space shuttles were new back then. Yeah, just a forgettable theme tune, but a fucking absolutely memorable period of James Bond. It was Roger Moore doing his thing.
I'm just hearing that Roger Moore has pulled in to the service station, but he won't be here for another hour or two, so we're going to have to do a part 2 to this video before he gets here, because that was the surprise, is that Roger Moore is coming despite having been dead for a few years. I couldn't get any of the Bonds to appear. We don't have all the time in the world, so we're going to have to end this one for part 1 only. But it gives me my favourite opportunity, because now we get to use the words "to be continued" at the bottom, and there's a sequel coming. James Bond movies don't get sequels, really. Technically,
they're all sequels.
Yeah, but they don't actually.
No, it's a little bit like Zelda. It starts from day dot every film, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, this is going to be a direct continuity sequel. So part 2 will be the 80s and onwards. In the lead by 46 points is Dr. No with the James Bond theme. And then after that is Paul McCartney and Wings' Live and Let Die with 43.1.
I don't think that Paul McCartney wins anything.
We have Jack White, we have Chris Cornell coming up, Adele, and Sam Smith. Quite a lot to discuss in the next episode. This will be a 2-parter, but it won't be long until part 2 is out. So look forward to that in your ears. In the meantime, make sure you follow us on Twitter at CacSessionsPod, on the Patreon, pay £5 a month, or listen for free on any given platform that you want. Any one of them. There's probably some it's not, but
I was certainly thinking it's pronounced Patreon, but continue.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I found that 50% of them say Patreon and 50% say Patreon, and I was like,
it's like the difference between people who sit down to wipe and stand up to wipe. It's staggeringly equal.
Wait, people stand up to wipe?
I'm saying this now because most people who've heard that for the first time get blown away like you just have, Dan.
I am blown away.
I guarantee you, go to work and ask. It's weirdly about half. Yeah.
49% are women and 51% are men, or the other way around. So
ask a word, you'll be blown away.
Are we talking about the male population or the general population?
I'm just going with males because I
was going to say, because it's probably about a 50-50 split if you're just talking men and women.
Just make sure you're wiping front to back.
No, I go back to back all the time. I live life dangerously.
And on that bombshell, stay wipey.
Stay clean.